All right, so I have to restart everything because the idea is that you should be able to understand. If you are unable to understand from scratch, you cannot continue because the basics uh, have to have, we are going to build on the basis. So if you don't understand the basis, you have to restart all over again. Now, I would like you to pay attention to the lecture, and then after that, you can move on with the practicals. And if you have a small test or a small sheet, you can take a bit of notes, not necessarily writing the note, but keywords that may be of help, such as links and special things that I will mention. All right. So this encounter is to learn how to develop a software. Now, there are three types of software. We have the software that runs on the computer. We have those that run on mobile, that is the mobile apps. And then we have those that run on the internet, that is the website. Now, when you learn software development, you can specialize on either of them, or you can specialize in all of them. Now, our approach, when you want to learn a software, we have certain languages that have been defined for that purpose. So we have the Python language, which we call them the programming language. So the Python language is our focus now. With the Python language, you'll be able to develop a software for the desktop, a software for the internet, that is website, using the combination of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And then you can also develop mobile apps using the Python KV framework. So with the basics, that is what we are going to use to advance it to build this software that we are going to look at. So after this basics, you can choose where to specialize in, whether to build software, website, desktop, or mobile app. Now, the Python language is the second most widely used language uh, because of its friendliness, because it's very free to learn. You feel easy. It's easy learning Python now, and it is used for a lot of things. Now, there are a lot of websites that have been built using the Python language, such as Instagram. Instagram runs on the Python framework, that is Django. So when you learn Python to a certain level, you learn frameworks, and one of the frameworks is Django, that is Python Django. And the Python Django is what Instagram is built on. A software like Dropbox and then YouTube. We also have, there are a lot of software that are built with Python. And my current, all the current website that I'm building, I'm using the Python Django for it. So every website I build now is on the Python Django. So Python has a lot of capabilities. So we are going to look at that. Now we have the Python language. That is the Python programming language. And that is what it is used to develop the software. So the language you write, that is the code you write, will be compiled to build the software that will be able to execute on either mobile website or desktop. But before you can write the Python language, no, the Python is just, the programming language is just a language that you can write, or you can even speak to people who are who understand Python. But when you want to use it to develop, it takes the Python software to be able to understand the Python language. So it's not a language that I can just speak to you like, I want you to print it, I want you to do that, I want you from this, import this, and then you'll be able to do. No, it takes a software to do all that, to take that command and then compile it to bring the desired result that we want. So we have the Python software, and then we have the Python programming language. Without the Python software, we cannot run a Python language on the computer. So before we can write a language, the Python language, we need the Python software on our computer. So for the sake of this lesson, I've uninstalled everything that we're going to use for this course. So I will redo everything over again so that you see how it is done. So the first thing you should get is the Python software. Now, the Python software is an open source software. In development or programming, when we say something is open source. It means it is free. It is not for sale. You can get it at any point in time once you visit the website that contains it. So the Python software is open source. And then you can get it from the official Python website, that is python.org. When you're on python.org, that you'll be able to get the Python software. Now, because it's a new language and it is easier to use, there is a large community. That means there's a lot of people learning Python, and then each of them are using their experience and then contributing to the development of the Python programming language. So we have that community, which is called the Python Software Foundation, PSF. With this foundation, it has a lot of developers, both big and small, so that we contribute to the development of Python. So each and every, as often as possible, we update and then upgrade the Python software. Now, it has been just about 3 weeks that we started the course, the first encounter. And then 2 weeks now, we downloaded Python 3.10.5, but just a few weeks, just last week, Python 3.11 was released. So as often as possible, they add more features to it and then they upgrade it. So that is about the Python Software Foundation and the Python at large. So now our focus should now be on downloading Python on our machine. And as I told you, it's an open source, so it's free. So we'll go to open our browser and then go to python.org, python.org, and then we'll open the python.org to be able to download our Python software. Now, this is the official Python software. All right. So when you are here, you can see that we have other buttons here that we can scroll through. We have the downloads button. Okay, we have the downloads area. When we go to the downloads area, we have the downloads button here, which now, okay, it hasn't been updated or yet from here, but Python 3.11 is out. So we have Python 3.10.5 here. So once we click on this button, it's going to download. It's just easy. Okay, so just go to downloads. When you visit the python.org, you go to downloads, then you just click on the button here, and then you'll be able to download it. It's very, I think it's about just a few megabytes. So I will click on it, and then you see that it is downloading here. It's about 24, let's say 28 megabytes here. That is the Python software. It is now downloading. And you can also see that when you are on the website, there are some inscriptions that are going on here, showing you some of the things you can do with Python. Okay, but that is not going to be our focus, but I just wanted you to understand what the website is about and what it does. So we are on the Python website now. There is also a PSF, that is the Python Software Foundation link here. We can go there. When we click on it, we can go to the Python Software Foundation. So this is the Python Software Foundation. It's free, so you can donate to, you can be a sponsor, you can be a member by just going there and then registering as a member, and then you can also be part of the community. On top here, we also have the Python documentations, that is the docs. That is everything about the Python you are going to use. That is the Python you have downloaded. So we have, you see, you can see by here, Python 3.12, which is in development. Python 3.11, that is pre-release. I told you about Python 3 is out, but it hasn't been updated now. So it is pre-release. And then Python 3.10 now is the stable version. The stable version means that you can continually use it. It is fully built for usage, so you can use it. We have Python 3.9, which is stable. Python 3.8, security fixes are ongoing. And then, so these are all not advisable to use. You can use the latest stable version, that is Python 3.10. So it has the documentation, that is it. When you when you are using Python and you find something not going well, you can come here and then read about what it is. Okay, there are tutorials for you to go through it, but this is quite tedious if you are not in development. If you are a beginner, it may sound very difficult for you. So when you go there, the if statement, they tell you how it is used, but sometimes this is just straight to the point. That's why I told you that when you're a beginner, you find it very, you should have an advanced knowledge in it so that when you come to the docs, you'll be able to know what this is about. All right. So if you want the documentations, you can get it as well. And there are other jobs. There are jobs that are being offered. So if you want a developer job, if you want a job from them, they have posted some jobs here, posted 22nd June 2022. They are looking for a back end. So that means a back end developer that is with Python or cloud computing, database, front end, image processing, all the jobs that they have here. You can just look at it and then look for one. Maybe if you're lucky, you'll be able to get that job. And then we also have the Python community, that is the PSF. Okay, good. So we have downloaded our Python. Now it is here. Now I want to minimize this. So I'll go to the folder in which my Python was downloaded to. And you know that with Windows, once you download something, it just goes straight to the Windows folder. So I'll just go there. And then, okay, I have it here. I've already downloaded it, but I just had to add to it. So it's here. To do that, to install, I'd like to double click. Okay, let me just do right click, then open. And then immediately it will start to just open for me to. I'll just hit on run. And there is one special command here, which is very, very important. If we don't do that, our Python will not run on our computer. We have to do other integrations before it will be able to, and that is add to path. Add to path. So we will just click on add Python 3.10 to path so that it will do the integration by itself while we install it. So we add it to path and then we click on install now. Okay. All right, so that is it. It's getting installed successfully for us. While we waited. So now we know about the Python software that we are now installing. After the installation, it will not just start running. Okay, we need a software that will also allow us to type the Python language. Okay, we need a software that will allow us to type the Python software language. And then we call them text editors. Call them text editors. There are many of them. In fact, there are a lot. We have Sublime Text, we have Visual Studio Code, we have Atom, we have Notepad++, but not Microsoft Word. Microsoft Word is not part of it. It cannot be used for it. So I'm recommending for this course Visual Studio Code, Microsoft Visual Studio Code for this. So we also have to go there, and then while this is installing, we'll go online and get the Microsoft Visual Studio Code, and we'll get it from code.visualstudio.com. Okay, code.visualstudio.com. Hit enter, and then that one is also an open source, but sometimes you have the paid version as well. You have the paid version. If you are a member of Microsoft, you have access to the paid version as well. Okay, you have access to the paid version. And then you can also use it online. You can also use it online. So if I go to the web version, I'll be able to have the whole software run online for me. So this is how it's going to look like. Now you see that when we install it, whatever is going to appear here. So this is how when we install it, it will appear. But this is the online version. Okay, this is going to run fully online, and that means that you will need an internet always to be able to write your code, but that is not advisable. So we are going to go to the offline version. So we will download. So you can also see that we have the stable build, which means that this is one that is recommended for us. Aside that, we also have the download button right here, and then we can hit on it. Okay. I've already downloaded it, so I'm just going to, so I want you to just click on it. Once you click on it, it's going to start downloading. So I'll go to my folder. Let me see. Okay, the setup was successful. I will close it now, and then go back to my downloads folder. If there's something you want me to know, write it in the chat. All right, so I'll now have Visual Studio Code also here, VS Code user setup. Okay, so this is a user setup. So I'll also go through the installation just as we did for the Python. Right click, open, and then the installation will start. Now it says run. Ask for permission. Okay, you have to accept the agreement. Okay, accept the agreement, then hit enter. Next to the folder. Okay, it's already, so I'll just install it anyway. Hit next. And then here, I have to check everything. If you are going to use it for website, you have to check everything here. Add open with code action to Windows Explorer file context. So this is going to allow us to, when we are on the desktop like this, we'll be able to open. You see that there will be a command here which says open with code. Okay, when we right click, that command will come. So we need to add it to it. Okay, good. So now we have all of them checked, and then there's going to create a desktop icon. So go to next, install. Now this will also install in no time for us. So these are the integrations we are going to do, not integration, the installations we are going to do to be able to start writing successful Python codes, and then be able to execute it by the Python software we have already installed. Do you have any question up to this point? Okay, if no question, all right. All right. If no question, so we can now launch our Python, our Visual Studio Code. So I'll click on finish, and then it will be launched. Now, this is very important. Now, you see that Visual Studio is a different software, and then Python is also another software. Okay, Python is another software, Visual Studio is another software altogether. But they need to interact because we are going to write the Python code inside the VS Code. They need to interact. So Visual Studio Code will need an environment. Visual Studio Code, this is not going to be the first thing that will appear. I have some projects already. That's why it has opened. So I'm going to open a new window. All right, so you should see this. You should see this on your first launch. Okay. Now you see that Visual Studio is another software, and then Python is another software. But we are going to write Visual Studio Python language in the Visual Studio. So there must be a connection between them. There must be a connection between the Visual Studio and then the Python language. And that is what we call the extensions. Okay, extensions. So we need to get an extension that is going to connect the Python software to Visual Studio Code so that they will interact. So there must be that connection, and that connection is created with an extension. So let's go to, on Visual Studio Code, we have the Explorer button here. We have the search, we have the Git, that is the source code source control, we have the debug, and then we have the extensions. You can just click on the extensions button, and then the extensions will appear here. So I've already installed a lot of extensions because of what I'm using. So these are the installed extensions. All right. So you are not going to see this. Let me close this one. And then, so on top, which is search extensions, we're going to search for Python like this. When you search for Python, it's going to, now you see that you have Python for VS Code. I've already installed it, so it's not going to appear for me to install. But you also have other Python extensions here, which you can install. But when you search for Python, the first thing that will appear should be what you should install. That is this one. Okay, I've already installed it. So when it comes like this, then you click on the install button below it. Okay, you will click on the install button below it, and then you will be able to add it to your extension so that you can create that connection between your Python software, and then allow you to write your Python language. Any question with regards to this as well?
Hello, please go over the extension again for me, please.
Okay, so the extension, you see that the Python software is a different software on its own. Now, let me tell you, you have once you install the Python software, you have a text editor attached to it, but that is not effective. I wouldn't say it's not effective. I wouldn't like to use that one. So even if you don't install Visual Studio Code, there is a text editor that is attached to Python. Where is the P version? Okay, there's a text editor that is attached to Python that you can use, but I don't want to use it. That's why I'm recommending Visual Studio Code. So we have the idle. Okay, the idle is the text editor for Python. It comes with it. With that one, you don't need to install any extension. You can just open it and then go straight to writing your Python language. But because we are using a third party, you see that it has opened idle like this. I can write Python code inside of it. Okay, I can write a Python code inside of it. You see that I just wrote 2 + 2, hit enter, and then it has given me the answer. So this is not what I prefer. You see that I don't need to do any extensions, or I don't need to do any connections, but I don't prefer this, but I prefer the Visual Studio Code. So because I want to use the Visual Studio Code, there must be a connection between the Visual Studio Code, because the Visual Studio is on its own. Okay, it's a software on its own. So there must be that connection between the Visual Studio Code and then the Python software. Okay, there must be a connection between so we are not installing Python again, but we are installing a connection that will link Visual Studio and then Python. And that is the extension. That is the extension. So once you install the extension, there will be that connection between Python, and then you don't need to do anything again. So anytime you want to write your Python code, you can just use Visual Studio Code for it. Without the extension, you cannot execute. You can write the code, all right, but you cannot execute it because it doesn't have access to the Python software. Because the Python software that takes the code and then execute it. But if there is no connection between them, it cannot run it. So that is why there must be that extension, which is going to connect the Python software and then Visual Studio Code, so that you'll be able to successfully run Visual Studio Code on your run Python code on your Visual Studio Code. Do you understand it now? So until you install the extension, you cannot get access to Python software from Visual Studio Code. Other than that, okay. Other than that, you have to use the idle. If you can manage to use the idle, it's your own ability that's going to. So because this is just simple, 5, right? 5 plus 4 plus 3 gives you 7. 3 equals 2, it gives you 4. These are all true. They are the same thing that we are going to learn. Okay, but you need to get access to certain things that will allow you to write it. So these are all true. Okay, right? Greater than equal to 4 is false. Okay, so this is easier to use, but it doesn't give you the feel of developing. So just close this one. So that's why there must be that connection from the extension. So just type Python and then install the first and that will come. Good. Once you install it, now for every project we do, you have to now create a folder to which you are going to install all your apps. So you may create a folder on your desktop. I'm going to create a new folder. So I'll just create new folder and call it Python project. Okay, let me call it Python lesson because I think I have Python project somewhere. Okay, so I've created my Python project lesson folder. And then you see that Visual Studio is now asking me to open a folder. Okay, so it means it may need a folder to save all your files in it. So I'll just say open folder. No, it will take me to my system. So I'll go to desktop and then say Python lesson and then select the folder. And then the folder will be open Visual Studio Code. What? Oh, aside that, you can also drag and drop and then it will come. And then even with Visual Studio Code, you can also create folders through Visual Studio. Okay, you can create it. We have the file button here, and then we have the folder button. If you want to create another folder inside of the folder you have already opened, you can also do that here. So I'm going to create a new folder and call it day 1. So I'll say new folder, call it day 1. Hit enter. So when I go to the desktop, I have my Python lesson here. When I open it, I will have another folder inside, which is day 1. Okay. You can continually create more folders, say day 2, day 2, and then when I go inside, I have 2 folders, day 1, day 2, all here. Good. So I'll go inside the day 1 folder. I'll just click on it and then the arrow will turn down, meaning it has been opened. And then I'll create my first file in it. So I'll click here, call it any name that you want to give to it. So I'll say app.py. Now, when you are creating a file, you need to add the file name and then .py. The .py means it's a Python extension. It's a Python extension. So if you don't add it to it, you won't be able to identify it as Python. So that's why you need to add the .py. And then there's another thing with naming your file, your Python file. You see that I used only small case. It is advisable that you do that. Okay. It is advisable that you name them in small case, but there are other conventions that you can create. You can use 3 naming conventions. We have the all small case, and then we have another one like the camel case. With the camel case, the first letters can be caps. So if you want to give 2 names for the file, it is not advisable that you cannot use 2 names with spaces inside. Like app one. No, it is not. It is not accepted. App one is not accepted. But you can do this app one. Okay, you put them together. That is camel case in app one.py. Okay, it's also advisable. That is effective. Or you can also use underscore, like app underscore one.py. It is also accepted, but you cannot leave spaces in it, like app one.py. It will only take the one.py because it's one pure, but it is not advisable we use it. It is not accepted as a Python naming convention, but you can use the underscore. Good. So try to use any of these three names. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, 1, 2, 3. This from here to here. I'm just going to delete that one. Good. So you see that all our apps are here. Just going to delete. All our apps are here with a Python icon attached to it. So it means that now we'll be able to write our Python code. Now, one thing I also want you to look at is that you see that when you install the extension, there's going to be a play button which says run Python file. This is what we are going to use to run a Python file. Now, I think this is where the confusion is. Where we are right now, we are not developing a software that has graphic user interface. That is what like what we are using now. A software that has a graphic user interface, that pictures that you'll be able to use. This software that we are developing will run on a terminal, such as the CMD. Okay, a software like CMD. You see that this is a software, but it doesn't have graphics, pictures, and other things that you can use. This is exactly what we are doing now. When we run a Python code, it will open the Visual Studio terminal like this, and then run it. It will open the Visual Studio terminal like this, and then run it for us. So we have the terminal here. We can open it on ourselves, or once we click on the run, it will open it automatically. So we have the terminal, like terminal, go to new terminal, and then below here, the terminal will open for us. So this is where our code is going to run. Okay, this means the software is going to run on a terminal, like the command prompt does it. Later on, we will develop a software that has pictures and everything. Okay, that is when we reach, I think, from the third week. That's what we are going to do. We will convert this software into graphic user interface. Okay, so that we'll be able to build upon it. So on our first app, in the Python languages, there are other things, like every language, there are things that needed to be able to speak the language. For instance, if you take the English language, you need to learn the alphabet so that you can convert them, put them together, 2 letters, 3 letters, 4 letters, and everything. So this one also has other features that they have added. But this one, we don't call it, it has all its names. We call them functions, okay, functions. Like take the body, for instance. With the body, every part of the body has its own function. Like the hand can be used for so many things, eating, slapping, doing everything. The leg used for walking and other things. Python also has other things that perform functions for it. And one of them is print. Okay, with print is print. Now, in Python, every function has got a bracket after it. Every function has got a bracket after it. Later on, we will write our own function that will do other things for us. But this is a pre-built function this is a pre-built function in Python. Okay, oh, this is a pre-built function. I hope you can see clearly. This is built in Python for us. So with Python, every function has got a parenthesis or a bracket ahead of them or after it. So the print function, what it does is that it compiles or interprets your code. Okay, it interprets your code and then display it on the terminal. The only thing it's going to do is that Python has made it to just take your code, compile it, and then show it on the terminal. So we will write the code that we want to present inside the parentheses. So I want us to write just like 2. Okay, I say write print 2. When I run it from the play button here, see that because Python has told the print function to just present what is in the bracket in the terminal, you can see that we have what 2 here. You have 2 on the terminal. Okay, we have 2 on the terminal. Let me go to the, okay, I have my app inside my folder. If I want to, okay, if I want to run it, okay, don't worry. I can run the software inside my command prompt, but let's do this. So it says that take whatever is in the bracket and then put it in the terminal. That is exactly what it is doing. So the print will only do what it has been assigned to. So if I say print Irene, it is going to print Irene for me. That is the function of the print. It doesn't do anything apart from taking the code and compiling it on the terminal. Okay, there are many functions we can write. There are other functions, but we are starting with the print. You can say, okay. Then hello world is in the terminal. So the function that has been given to, like giving a function to the hand that your hand